Welcome everyone to our second coronavirus update. I'm Brian Reagan, joined by Dr. Toleno. Again, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure, Brian. Thanks for coming out and doing this. I really appreciate it.
At this point, we are closed through April 6th, and that obviously leads directly into our spring break. When does that mean that Upper Merion students will actually return?
Well, it's interesting because we've been told to close till Monday, April 6th, and that's part of our spring break, obviously. And the other part of that is that we're allowed to bring custodians and maintenance people in on the 7th and 8th. We're not allowed to bring students in on the 7th and 8th. We're allowed to bring custodians and maintenance people in to clean our building. So we're going to do that to clean each of our buildings, but that would really only allow one day for students to come back, and that would be Thursday, April 9th, would be really the start for our teaching staff and our students to come back. And it's not something that I think is a real good idea, especially if we're right on the precipice of this thing, and we're not quite sure if it's going away, we're not quite sure if it's growing. It doesn't make sense to me, and I've been asked by some people, why would we not consider canceling spring break? And although I know people can't travel anywhere right now, the real issue is to gain one day out of spring break, because you'd come back on the 9th, Thursday the 9th, if we do this, and then we'd have Good Friday off anyway. Well, then why would we have Good Friday off? Well, because I have contractual issues. It's not as easy as just saying we're going to cancel everything. There are contractual issues that I would have to get in and renegotiate and do those things with some of our labor groups. So I'm not blaming them. I'm just saying that is it really smart to pick up 1 or 2 days max, and why not just take that time off and wind up coming back on Tuesday the 14th? I just think that's a better move. So right now I'm not looking at spring break. That doesn't mean I'm not going to. Because things can change in this situation, as you know. You've been part of it, and you've been so gracious to come in and do these interviews with me and set this all up. But right now, spring break is going to stay the way it is. I'm still deeply concerned about what's going on with this illness, and we've still done a very good job here in the school district, at least, by being apart from one another and controlling and containing what's happening. So it's just real important that everybody just be patient on this one. Is it really worth rushing back to gain a day? It just doesn't make sense to me.
Now, has anything changed from the governor in terms of making up those days that were missing for the shutdown?
In fact, it's really become more solidified that there will be no makeup for those days. And since we are all kind of switching right now, we're in the midst of going to a distance learning model, if you will, and in some cases we're handing out actual physical papers to people. We have staff members that have taken care of a lot of those issues during this week. Nothing has changed at this point. There's no concern about having to add these 11 days to the end of the school year. That will not happen. It's just not going to happen. There is a waiver that we're going to have to fill out. It's a very basic waiver. There's also a plan that we have to submit to the Department of Education with regard to how we're going to be educating going forward. We will submit that plan, and the good news is that those plans don't have to be approved. We simply have to submit the plan. So that's kind of interesting language as well. So I'm really confident there's not going to be any issues with regard to the extension of the calendar. I don't plan on extending the calendar. We are going to make this work so that we get our seniors graduated, if we're allowed to, on the regular date that we had, I believe. So that's what we're going to do. We're still set at Villanova, and we're going to continue as we go forward to look at all these year-end events. If we're fortunate enough to get back, we're going to do the best we can to make sure that we get these year-end events in, whether it's athletics or whether it's the amazing musical that the kids are going to be doing at the high school, whether it's senior projects. But what I don't want to do is have people stressed right now. Let's really continue to worry about the issue at hand. And the issue at hand is to do our best to make sure that we don't help spread this coronavirus. And that means social distancing, that means staying at home, that means, look, you can go out for a walk, but practice good social distancing when you're out for a walk and when you're out trying to get some fresh air. They say the sun is good for this thing, so although it's a cloudy day today, if the sun does come out, it's something that's very, very important. So that's really where I want people's minds right now.
Well, now that the closure has been extended, can you walk people through what type of work will be sent home and what are the expectations for the completion of that work?
Okay, well, that's really, it's twofold. We're going to be, Dr. Silver and Dr. Kuhn and Dr. Gardner have done an amazing job, along with the building principals and some other staff members. Mr. Moody's done an incredible job with his staff trying to make sure that we have equality from our regular ed students to our special ed students. And that's the key. A lot of people just think that, well, why didn't we just jump into online learning? Well, we don't have that capability. We don't have an online program. So therefore, it's not something we just transfer everybody over to. And the other piece of it, from a national front, was we just can't pick and choose who we educate during this period of time. The fair and the right thing to do is to make sure we have appropriate planning in place to deal with all of our students and to make sure that everybody receives a free and appropriate public education, not just certain students that we cherry pick because they can handle certain modes of education, of educational programming. So we have already sent documentation home to everybody. We've sent it home in Spanish and Arabic. So we've done the best we can possibly do to make sure that we communicate with as many people as possible. Our CNI team has put a number of resources out there, including free resources for internet. I know that's going to be one of the questions we talk about. I'll beat you to it right now. So Comcast has been gracious enough to set people up for 2 months, so I would encourage people to do that. We already started to make sure that we get our iPads out, or we're working on a program right now to get our K through 4 iPads out there. We already were able yesterday to get our iPads at the middle school out to our students, and we also were able to get our instruments out to those students who've asked to get their instruments back home. So in the meantime, they're going to be hearing from staff members. We're gearing up at this point. We've got some things out there already. I mean, I follow a number of our staff members on Twitter, and they've just done some amazing things communicating with students and throwing some assignments out there, some things to look at. But also going forward, we're gonna clearly look at, how we provide this instruction, how we sprinkle in new instruction going forward, depending upon how long we're going to be closed for, is a whole nother question. And that's clearly the crystal ball question, and we don't know the answer to that. Monday, April 6th, for being the last day of closure, it's going to be interesting to see if we make that timeline, considering, nationally how this thing is still growing and what the experts tell you what that curve is all about. So parents, stay tuned. Please stay tuned for the information that's going to be coming out, that has already come out, for resources for your children and your high school kids and middle school kids. We're doing the best that we can, and we've got a really solid plan in place, and we're really excited about the next step in all this.
Now, in terms of the work, will the work be assessed? Will it be graded?
The work is going to be reviewed. The work is clearly going to be reviewed by the staff members. We are definitely going to reweight the fourth marking period and part of the third marking period. I'm not quite sure where we were towards the end of the third marking period. I think we were kind of right there where we would have had to make some adjustments, but I can assure everybody that we are going to wind up reweighting the fourth marking period. This should not be a time of stress for everybody to deal with this. This is really a time where, like I said, we're going to sprinkle in new work. We're going to sprinkle in new curriculum as we go forward, as we become acclimated to this. But some of the issues that people should be concerned about are, again, I think I mentioned this in the first interview, who's taking care of elderly parents? Who's taking care of sick people at home? Whether it's the COVID virus or not, this is still cold and flu season. And then another piece to look at is, what about the moms and dads at home that have toddlers? That, these teachers are going to be trying to put so much time in a day to be on camera or to be in front of students or however they're going to do it. And they still have to take care of their own family members. So this is a learning curve for everybody. This isn't as easy as everybody would like it to think it is because someone has a computer. Well, we all have computers. Why can't we just educate the kids? It's not that easy. I'm not making excuses. I'm just providing facts. So we will absolutely reweight the marking periods. And again, this is not something everybody should stress over. I've had a lot of questions about senior graduation projects. And I'm not saying they're not going to be due and they're not going to have to be done. But let's first figure out when we're going to be back. And let's not stress over those things. Let's worry about keeping people healthy. And that's really the message I want to get out there.
Now, and you touched on it briefly, but I just want to make sure we understand. So
Sure.
Earlier this week, we did have arrangements for students to pick up iPads and musical instruments. Do you feel that is completed? Or is there any process if a student doesn't or hasn't, or where does that stand?
Actually, what the student can do if they didn't get something. Now here's one of the issues that we had. If a computer for a high school student or an iPad was broken at the middle school, we send those out to get repaired. For the most part, if it's a broken screen, we send them out. Well, those repair shops are closed. So chances are, if we don't have an extra one, you're going to have to use a device that you might have at home or borrow a device from somewhere. So that's the only sticking point right now. Right now, the communication is going through the building principals. And that's working very, very well. So if someone missed that time to get in, you can certainly send an email to one of the building principals and we'll make sure that happens for you. The other side that we're doing right now is tomorrow we're starting to allow staff members into the buildings. on a very strict and rigid schedule for each of the buildings. Not all the buildings are happening tomorrow. It'll be between tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday. That we have a very strict schedule that Mr. Bauer and Mr. Slavin worked out, so they're going to kind of transfer that to the elementary principals. I met with all the elementary principals last night and all of our principals last night and our leadership team on our Google Hangout. And what I did express is that this is not supposed to be a time of kind of getting together and say, hey, how you doing today? And let's all sit in the same room. We've scheduled in such a way that staff members come in, they have X amount of minutes to get whatever they need to teach only, and get out. I hate to be that rude about it, but that's really the way that I put it to our team last night, that, you know, I'm not going to be flexible in this. I don't want to find out that someone's sitting in a room somewhere and they're all commiserating about what's going on, how's your family, how's this, how's that. No, get into your room, get your materials, and get out. Because, again, I don't want to be part of spreading this thing and continuing this thing any longer than we actually have to. So we're excited that the staff members are going to be able to get in, grab some instructional materials they're going to need, because let's face it, everybody was told in a very short notice on March 13th that, oh, by the way, you're going home now for 11 days. And in fact, at the high school level, those staff members were already gone by the time that message, or they were just about leaving when that message went out. So, yeah, we've already started that process.
Now, obviously, the district has already done quite a lot in terms of distributing meals. Can you talk to me a little bit about what the schedule is going forward for supplemental meals for people in need?
The schedule is going to be exactly the same. We've handed out over, I want to say it's 1,400 meals to people. So we're very, very excited about that. Mrs. Bartlett and her whole crew, Mr. Remilius, have just done an amazing job. And one word I want to put out there is there's been some people that want to volunteer to help with this. It's really not a good situation. We can control our own staff, and we can control the safety gear that our staff wears. So although we love the fact that the community wants to help and people want to volunteer, we're going to turn you away. Because, again, we don't want to be part of spreading this. So we understand what our protocols are and how the protocols are that we set up. And I wanted to address another issue. There's been some questions out there. How come the kids have to be in the vehicle? Well, because that's what the federal guidelines are. That's what we've been told we have to do. So we're going to give food to anybody, but the bottom line is the children have to be in the vehicle. There has to be someone that's a student in our school district that's up to 18 years old that is a student here.
Right.
And it's that simple. It's not that we just can't take food and pile it into someone's car that shows up without kids there. So I just want people to understand that we're not trying to be hard about it, but yet we're still trying to follow the guidelines that were told to us when we set this program up. So we're very excited about the program, and of course there's always still the community cupboard, and that schedule. Both schedules are remaining the same. There's been no change to the schedules, and I think that's really where you're getting. I'm making a long answer out of a short question, and I apologize for that. But both schedules have stayed the same. And I'll repost those schedules as I find necessary, and I'm sure we can get that back out there on Twitter and through this as well.
Now, have there been any additional people identified in the district who have been exposed to the virus?
No, not that I'm aware of. Currently, in Montgomery County, we have 159 cases. It's grown a little bit from each day, but yet the percentages have grown. Now, the difference is, too, which we have to keep in mind, we're testing more people. So you really can't say whether more people are infected. We now know about more people. So I don't know if that's good, bad, or indifferent, but the bottom line is that we're still looking to slow that curve down. I get the report every night from the Office of Emergency Management. And, I want to say that last night it grew by, yesterday between Tuesday when they opened and last night when they closed, there was a 17% increase over the day before, but the day before was a 27% increase. And then the day before that was 43. So I'm not saying we're slowing it down. I'm just saying that the numbers have changed slightly. It looks a little bit better from a growth perspective, but it's still something we all have to be concerned about. There's right now is not the time to say, well, it's getting better. Let's all get out and let's get together and, we can go play softball, or we can be out on a field somewhere, or we can just kind of get together. It's really not a good time to do that. We still have to practice good social distancing.
Well, I want to thank you very much for joining us for the update. And as things change, we'll be back again to provide information.
As you know, it's a fluid situation, and we're doing our best to keep up with it, and I try to get as many updates out there as possible, and this is certainly a platform that I appreciate. So thank you for your time and doing this for me.
Well, thank you very much for
My
joining
pleasure.
us, and thank you at home for joining us.
Thank you.